I'd just like to thank the Lord for what He's done for the Blomefield family. We've been through some very difficult and very trying times, as the congregation knows and the fellowship knows. First of all, we lost little Craig some years back, and then we lost Alistair, and at times Michelle hasn't been well. So we really have been through incredible hardship. Now towards the end of May this year, I became very ill. And Michelle, my eldest daughter, said to me, she said, Dad, I think you need to go to hospital. And I said, Michelle, I'm not going to hospital because I have to work and I have to earn money. And as far as I'm concerned, that was the evil one talking to me. So anyway, we went down the coast, we went to a wedding, and I was very ill at the wedding. I couldn't eat and I couldn't swallow at the wedding. We went to the holiday flat and I was choking all the time. Peter, my brother, said to me, he said, you need to go into hospital, we need to take you now. I said, no, I've got to go home. I need to work tomorrow. On the Monday morning I got up, I went to pick up my assistant, my workshop assistant, and then I realized, I said, I'm not well enough to go to work. So I went home and I said, I'm going home to Emmanuel. I said, I'm going home. I'm going to phone my brother to come and get me because I'm not feeling well at all. At that time, my breathing wasn't good. I couldn't swallow. He picked me up and he took me into Durban. We arrived at about 1 o'clock, I would say, in the afternoon. And I went for my COVID test, which was negative. By about 3 o'clock, I ended up in the ward. I had to wait for a bed. And then my doctor came to see me. In the meantime, I'd phoned the secretary in the morning to say that I'm bringing my overnight bag in because I might have to stay in hospital. So she said, that's fine. And I went into the ward. The whole time I was aspirating. They call it aspiration. It was fluid going into the lungs all the time. And I was choking. I was actually dying. And I went into, my doctor came to see me and I said, doctor, I've got problems with my breathing and I've got problems with my swallowing. And my doctor said to me, he said, there's a misunderstanding here. I was led to believe it was your breathing, not your swallowing. So he said, so I said to the doctor, I said, well, what are my chances? He said, you're not very well at the moment. I said, what are my chances? He says, I can't tell you. So I spent the night in hospital and thinking what's going to happen from next. The whole time aspirating and bringing out phlegm into a little bowl, which they gave me. The following day, he came to see me, and he referred me to a ear, nose, and throat specialist, and they took me in a wheelchair to his rooms. I then went to his rooms, and they said you need to go for a barium X-ray. So I went for a barium X-ray, which I couldn't tolerate. I couldn't swallow. It just went into my lungs. So I had to bring it out, and somehow they just said cough it out. Most terrible feeling. I went back to the ears, nose and throat specialist, and he said to me, you are aspirating. He put a camera down through my nose into my throat. He said, you're just aspirating, and it's quite bad. We're going to fit you with a nose tube. And they gave me a nose tube, put into my throat, into my nose, into my stomach. This thing kept on coming out all the time. So eventually I managed to attach it properly, and they fed me through this nose tube. This was the first meal that I'd had in 48 hours, so I arrived. I didn't have any food of any description, any drip, or anything in my arm to maintain myself. And eventually I got up and I said to the sister, I said, please, you must give me something. I'm hungry. And they just left me there. So the next day, they said to me, we're going to feed you. So they put a feeder in, some special feed in through a pump and put it in through my nose tube. And then they kept on disconnecting because I had to go for a CT scan. I went for an MRI scan. And I didn't go again for a barium meal. I went for chest x-ray. And then the doctors all coordinated this together. The following day, the neurologist came to see me. And she said to me, she said, Brian, we're going to carry out some tests. So I said, that's fine. They sent me for an MRI scan and a CT scan. The whole lot was totally inconclusive. Then she said to me the following day, she said, look, do you mind if I bring in my colleagues? She didn't mention that there was something wrong or anything like that. She said, do you mind if I bring my colleagues in? I said, no problem. So she brought in a professor, and he came to see me. And I said to him, what do you think the problem is? He said, Mr. Blomefield, I think you've had a mild stroke. The following day, I asked the neurologist, and I said to her, what do you think? I said to her, what do you think it is? The professor thinks it's a mild stroke. And she says she doesn't think so. And this went on and on and on. And this went on for 3 weeks. Eventually she took a lumbar punch, and that also proved inconclusive. All this time I was mobile. I could walk around. I didn't have a problem. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't walk. My legs were paralyzed. I phoned Rosemary, my wife. I said, in tears, I said, Rosemary, I can't move my legs. They just don't want to move anymore. And they took me to a wheelchair. They took me to have a nerve test, where they test your nerves with pins and electrodes. It's quite a complicated affair. So I won't go into any detail with that. And then she said, no, this test is inconclusive. We can't find anything in the test. We don't know what it is. So I went back to the ward, and then they started to treat me with a plasma replacement. The ENT came to see me, and he said to me, Mr. Blomefield, we've diagnosed you with this Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a disease where the immune system attacks the nerves in your body, in your legs, your arms, everywhere. It affects your breathing and everything. And we're going to give you some of this treatment, which is called polygram. They gave it to me. They gave me the wrong dose. I ended up with unbelievable pain in my back. And I have a high threshold for pain. And I was shouting for sisters all the time, nurse, please help. I've got such pain in my back. It's terrible. I can't tolerate the pain. Please give me something for pain. And then they called the doctor, and the doctor came, and they said, we're moving you to ICU. So they put me in ICU. I was there for 10 days. All this while being fed through the nose tube. And then they decided to put a peg in my stomach. So I had an operation, and they put a feeding peg into my stomach to feed me. They took the nose tube out. They then took me to theatre. They put me in theatre. They took a biopsy of my throat. They couldn't find anything. Inconclusive again. And then in ICU, they gave me some physiotherapy, and I was walking around with stiff legs, but battling a bit, but I could get around with a walker, a proper walker with four legs. And the one morning the doctor said to me, she said, Mr. Blomefield, get out of bed. You must walk to me. I said, but I can't. I can't move. She said, Mr. Blomefield, get out of bed. So they helped me to get out of bed. So I walked with stiff legs to her, with the nurses all the way around me. And she said, that's fine, Mr. Blomefield, you've done very well. We're going to call in a physiotherapist, and they'll give you physiotherapy. So this went on. They gave me treatment for my chest. They gave me cortisone. They gave me antibiotics. And this went on for a month, having cortisone and antibiotics. In total, I was in hospital for 7 weeks. Then they moved me up to Wembley House in Pietermaritzburg. And they said I need to go to a step-down facility for rehabilitation. So I went there in an ambulance. I was terribly ill in the ambulance because you are facing towards the back of the vehicle all the time. And I arrived at Wembley House. Nice people, very friendly and loving. The lady came to see me, the occupational therapist, and she had a test on me to test how my brain functions were. And I thought to myself, this lady's not going to work with me. I'm sure we won't get on. And she said to me, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll come and see you tomorrow. And she gave me occupational therapy. I had physiotherapy there for 3 weeks. They were good to me there, they really were. And some of the people really were blessed there. And then eventually I was climbing upstairs and going downstairs. I was climbing up ramps and going down ramps. And they said to me, we can't understand how well you're doing. I said, well, I'm very positive. I'm strong in the Lord. And I believe that the Lord is going to help me get through this disease. And then I had the speech therapist, and she came along. And she said, Mr. Blomefield, I'll give you 2 chances. Either you want to be fed with a stomach pig for the rest of your life, or you can eat by mouth. So I decided I don't want the pig. I want to eat by mouth. She said, okay, I'll be back tomorrow morning. So she came tomorrow morning, the following morning, and she said to me, there's a block of ice. Please suck the piece of ice. And I sucked the ice, and she said, no, swallow, but don't swallow the block of ice. That went down. The next day she gave me a sucker, a lollipop. And I sucked that. And I could feel taste in my mouth, which I hadn't tasted for 2 months, over 2 months. And then following day she said to me, I bought some yogurt for you. And she gave me half a bowl of yogurt. I ate that. But in the yogurt, I couldn't eat the apricot. It had little apricot chunks. I had to spit them out. I was afraid to eat solid food. He said, okay, I'll be back tomorrow. And she bought some ice cream. I had some ice cream. And I ate some ice cream. I had 2 teaspoons of chocolate ice cream. And the chocolate obviously was a bit hard. And I swallowed that. The following day I went onto liquid food. In the meantime, they've been feeding me through my pig in my stomach. They were feeding me with liquid food. In other words, liquidized. Exactly the same as what everybody else ate, was just liquidized. And they gave me protein supplements to help me build my strength up. When I got into hospital, I weighed 49 kilos. I'd lost 16 kilos in weight. I've now put on weight, 11 kilos more now. So I'm much, much better. And then eventually I went across to solid food, and I started eating solid food like everybody else. Gently, very gently. But I did it slowly. She must just take it a bit at a time. So I ate slowly. And she got me eating. I now eat like a horse. I eat all the food. I eat biltong, scrambled egg, omelets, you name it, like biscuits, I can eat it. Praise the Lord for that. And then I went home. But just basically, it's a testimony. This is a real testimony, what's happened in my life. How the Lord saved my life. When I went into ICU, I never thought I'd survive. My brother said to me, I think you're going to die. And I said, never, I'm not going to die. The bottle of oxygen was on my bed. They were putting oxygen through my nose. And I said, we're taking you to ICU. But I've got all over this. Without the Lord, I don't think I would have made it. I think this is basically what the evil one wanted from me. He wanted me to die. That's what he wants. He comes to seek, destroy, and to kill, and to steal. That's what he wants. But there's no way that he'll get past me, because I'm strong in the Lord. I really am. There's just a few Bible verses which Craig will quote read for us. John 3:16.
Okay, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life.
Isaiah 53 verse 5.
Isaiah 53 verses 5. But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. He was chastised for our well-being. It fell upon him. And by his scourging we are healed. Or by his stripes we are healed.
1 Samuel verse 17 to 49. Craig, we don't have to go into too much detail there. The story of David and Goliath, which came up this morning in church this morning. David, if you'd like to mention that, Craigie.
Okay, 1 Samuel 17
to 49.
Chapter 17, verse 49.
Yeah.
And David put his hand into his bag and took from it a stone and slung it, and struck the Philistine on his forehead, and the stone sunk into his forehead, so that he fell on his face to the ground.
Colossians 3, verse 1 to 4.
Therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on the things above, not on the things on the earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, is revealed, then you also will be revealed with him in glory.
Romans 8, verse 35 to 37.
Who will separate us from the love of Christ? Will tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? Just as it is written, for your sake we are being put to death all day long. We are considered as sheep being slaughtered. But we are all these things. We are overwhelmingly conquer through him who loved us.
Revelation 21, verse 4.
And he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will no longer be any death. There will no longer be any more mourning or crying or pain. The first things have passed away.
Mark 5, verse 34.
And he said to her, Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction.
James 5, verses 14 to 16.
Is anyone among you sick? Then he must call for the elders of the church, and they are to pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord.
Psalm 103, verses 2 to 3.
Psalm 103, eh?
Yeah.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget none of his benefits, who pardons all your iniquities, who heals all your diseases.
Luke 5, verse 15.
But the news about him was spreading even farther, and large crowds were gathering to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses.
I just feel that the Lord has changed my life. In church this morning, Ephesians 4 verse 22. You need to put your old life behind you and go forward with your new life. And like many other people, there are a lot of things I'm to blame for. I've been living a lot in the flesh and worldly things. But sometimes the Lord will bring you down, and He'll raise you up, like He's done exactly with me. God has a purpose for everybody, and I just feel that He's a wonderful person, and He's brought me all the way through this. I just thank the Lord, and I'd just like to thank Jesus and the family of our church. Have been so good to this family, and we're all strong in the Lord, and we just like to thank you. Thanks very much.